Peace. I'm Sister Lala. I remember my introduction to the Dulcimer. It was while I was a student on the University of Kentucky campus. There was a recital being held at the library, and I attended the recital, and I remember being lulled by this beautifully rich instrument. It sounded to me like it was the soul of the mountains just pouring out its heart and filling up this room, and it just touched my soul and went right through me. And I knew that at some point I was going to want to work with this instrument. And when the opportunity came for me to use one of my arrangements in concert with this instrument, I jumped at that opportunity immediately. So the Dulcimer is an incredibly sweet instrument to me because I feel like it sings the spirit of the mountains.
Ever since the mountain dulcimer's iconic hourglass shape and sweet, discordant music captured the Appalachian imagination, the instrument and its songs have been passed down like family traits. Easy enough to play that the smallest hands can note and strum to accompany grandparents on the banks of the Ohio, the sound of the dulcimer rings throughout the mountains of Kentucky, which, with revised statute Title I, Chapter 2, Section 2.103, made it the official state instrument. Born in the Appalachian Mountains in the early 1800s, with global and alpine ancestors and a heart carved from the wilderness road, it gave ringing voice to the stories of the hollers. The name means sweet sound, and its haunting harmonies can be heard in the legacies of Kentucky's own John Jacob Niles, Gene Ritchie, and Homer Ledford, on the porches and parlors of Lily and Viper, in the concert halls of New York, and on albums by the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Cyndi Lauper, and Joni Mitchell. Its bittersweet sounds echo the drone of a chorus of crickets in the evening, the chiming melodies of birds in the pines, and the ancient mystique of the mountains themselves. This is the Mountain Dulcimer.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. All in my heart, I'm gonna let it shine. All in my heart, I'm gonna let it shine. All in my heart, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine, let it shine. Shine, let it shine. Shine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine.
Hi, I'm Ron Penn. I'm in my living room and home in Clark County on the border of Appalachia and Kentucky. I was a professor of music and director of the John Jacob Niles Center for American Music at the University of Kentucky. I've got a dulcimer here. It was made for me by Homer Ledford, also of Clark County, just down the road from me a little bit. My association with the dulcimer goes back about 40 years or so. I had my first one made for me in New Orleans, and I've been playing one ever since. The dulcimer has a long history going all the way back to its comments in the Bible, where it was mentioned by the book of Daniel. That instrument was not like our modern day dulcimers, though. It was probably a bagpipe. They were referring to the sound of it with the drone of a bagpipe. In the dulcimer, you have the same thing with the melody string played against strings that just continue to echo. Well, the instrument had other earlier ancestors. In Europe and in Hungary, they called it the cembalum. In China, they called it the yakin. And the instrument traveled to this country where we made some changes to it that allowed it to become the dulcimer, one of the few instruments that was truly made in the United States. And that was when they took the sounding body of it and added the fingerboards on top of it. That's when it becomes a dulcimer. There were early makers in Kentucky. Uncle Ed Thomas of the Cumberlands is the best known of them. He's the one that created the shape of the hourglass body with the two hearts for sound holes to let the sound through them. There was another Virginia type made by John Scales that was a teardrop shape. So those were the people that spread the dulcimer through the early world. And in Kentucky, and in particularly Knott County, Kentucky, in addition to Ed Thomas, there were people like Will Singleton, Jethro Ambege, and McKinley Craft, who had a real focus, a real center, a core of musicians who were making and playing the dulcimer there. Ed Thomas really spread this through the Gene Ritchie family, through Gene Ritchie's family, living nearby in Perry County. When Gene went to New York in 1948, she was discovered by Alan Lomax, performed a concert at Columbia University, and she was recorded on Elektra Records for the first time. And that's the way all kinds of people throughout the country heard about the dulcimer.
Well, hello. My name is Carrie Norris, and I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up mostly in central Kentucky and for 6 years in Columbia, South Carolina also. My grandmother was Lily Mae Ledford, and she was a banjo, fiddle player, singer, storyteller. Spent a lot of time with her when I was a young child, and that's what started my love of old-time music. I was lucky enough to spend time with Gene Ritchie at a place called the Hindman Settlement School through their Family Folk Week music camp as I was growing up. Started going there when I was 11 and continue to this day. And when I heard Gene Ritchie play the dulcimer and sing, it was kind of a revelation to me. I just felt like I was hearing the voices of my ancestors, and the music touched me so deeply that I rushed home and I told my parents I had to have a dulcimer. I had to be able to make that sound. So this is the dulcimer that my mom bought me for my 18th birthday. It was made by Homer Ledford. We went to pick it out at his workshop in Winchester, Kentucky, and I have been playing it ever since. So I want to share with you a song. This may be the first song I kind of taught myself on the dulcimer. I of course, taught myself the style I had seen Gene playing with the wooden noter, which is the old-timey way to play just on the first string. You're sliding this noter up and down, and then strumming with a pick. She always made her picks out of plastic lids, which this one is cut out of a plastic lid. But anyway, this song is called Charlie, over the river to feed my sheep. Charlie's neat, Charlie's sweet, Charlie he's a dandy. Charlie he's the very lad that stole my strawberry candy. Over the river, feed my sheep, over the river, Charlie. Over the river to feed my sheep and to measure up my barley. Don't want your wheat, don't want your cheat, neither do I want your barley. But I'll take a little of the best you got to bake a cake for Charlie. Over the river, feed my sheep, over the river, Charlie. Over the river to feed my sheep and to measure up my barley. My pretty little pig wants to think I never could do without you. Since I've lost all hopes of you, I care very little about you. Over the river, feed my sheep, over the river, Charlie. Over the river to feed my sheep and to measure up my barley.
Hi, my name is Doug Naselrub, and I make stuff from wood. Would you like to know more? Well, this is a replica. This is an Uncle Ed Thomas style dulcimer, which originated in the late 1900s, around 1871, in Knott County, Kentucky, which is where Hindman is. It's also where a place called Big Doubles is. So when I was asked to come down there in 2012 to start up the Appalachian School of Luthery, my first apprentice is a gentleman named Mike Sloan. Mike was very enthusiastic about the history of his community and the dulcimers. He said, I want to build, the Ed Thomas dulcimer. We want to research it. We didn't have any information. We didn't actually have any instruments around. All we had were like family stories and a couple of newspaper clippings. We knew that these instruments existed. We knew that Gene Ritchie had played one. And in fact, she was raised, Bayless Ritchie had this exact dulcimer. But we didn't know exactly how they were made. We didn't have one to take measurements from. And so we started digging. that led us to a man named George Gibson, who's a very enthusiastic collector of old banjos and dulcimers. And George actually brought us a couple of them in pieces, which got us started down that road. So the early years of the Appalachian School of Luthery were all about the dulcimer. We had a festival. We built quite a few of these, actually. At the time of his death, I think Mike may have made 30 of them. And we, of course, at the same time made guitars and mandolins as part of the school. As things progressed, we were offered an opportunity to lease the former Kentucky School of Craft there in Hyman. They have a magnificent woodworking studio, and we got the idea that we could go in there and create a few jobs by manufacturing guitars. We were already working, by the time we got that going, we were already working with people who, from the area, who were in recovery from substance use addictions. So we were able to bring those guys along and train them into gainful employment at the Troublesome Creek Stringed Instrument Company. In 1871, a man we call Uncle Ed Thomas, James Edward Thomas to be exact, and somehow Thomas got the idea, Uncle Ed, that he would make a dulcimer that was more like a violin. So with many points of comparison, he made these instruments which are light. They have an angelic tone. They even have a little scribed line around the tops. He very much emulated the qualities and the voice of the fiddle, I guess. That's the best we can figure. Anyway, when he was done, he created this what is now iconic mountain dulcimer, the hourglass-shaped mountain dulcimer, styled like this. The way this is all done, you know, the pegs, the peg box, you know, very much like a violin. But the lightness of these woods that this is made of, this instrument only weighs about a pound. I mean, it's a very, very delicate instrument. And the voice.
This dulcimer was the first instrument to come out of Tadwright Woodworks of Mills River, North Carolina. That was in 1976. I went on to win many a contest with this instrument. Thought I'd play a tune from Kentucky fiddler John Salyer, who lived over in Salyersville. It's called The Rose in the Mountain.
So this instrument of ours, the dulcimer, really has a long history in Kentucky where it spread to the rest of the country. Contemporary makers include people such as Homer Ledford, who created this sweetheart dulcimer or courting dulcimer.
Of course, I grew up under Homer. Homer taught me Uh, I was in Mount Sterling and Homer's over in Winchester, and I just wore him out about how to do all of this. And he was really my mentor if I had one. He really helped me. And he actually, I'll say this about Homer. He was a mentor and had this attitude of teaching it forward that has served me well. I mean, to in some small way emulate Homer is that's pretty much my career. That's the absolute truth of it.
There were other performers, though, who used it. John Jacob Niles, also of Kentucky, made the dulcimers himself, and he often created interesting shapes for them based on the design of other instruments. He took the cello or a lute or a mandolin, and he would create his own instruments to suit his own personal voice and performance style. Gene Ritchie laughingly called them Nilesomers instead of dulcimers. Well, it's a beautiful instrument and one that has a place in our world today because it's relatively easy to play at first. It's in a different kind of tuning, a modal tuning, unlike the piano or the guitar, that allows you to play melody strings and drones at the same time. I'm going to play a little bit of a tune, an East Kentucky tune by Estill Bingham. It's called Old Aunt Jenny with Her Nightcap On.
Homer used to say that every piece of wood should be 100 years old and have a story. We've had a real abundance of locally sourced material to work with, and we don't really ever particularly want to cut a tree down and have green wood. We prefer to wait till something falls down, and then we can cut it up and use it for a long time. But the other thing is that wood will talk to you. When you split up a big piece of wood and start getting little pieces off of it, they'll have a resonance to them when they're handled or touched, when you tap on them a little bit. In fact, we call it a tap. The tap tone, we say tap for short. So, that wood has a tap tone. It's very distinctive, and it's a tone wood if it responds to that. It's a magical process to take a chunk of wood and start out with this dead tree that's laying somewhere and end up with music. It's just like, it's like magic. And it's really fun when you can be in the woods and you can see this log, maybe a little piece of it exposed, and in your mind it's like, oh, I know what kind of a guitar that's going to make. I know what kind of instruments we're going to have there. And then from then on, you're just working to see that emerge. Luthiers will tell you lots of reasons that they make instruments, but the real one is that you want to see it. You want to hear the music. You want to see it work. And that moment when you get the sound that you've dreamed all along, that dream it's fulfilled in your hands. It's like, that's what you work for.
So what do I do?
Yeah, so press your finger down really hard right there, right up against the fret,
and then strum and walk up. Yeah, sounding great. Now walk back down. Oh, that's sounding beautiful. Hi, I'm Brian Clausing from the Lexington Public Library, and I'm here with my daughter Gloria.
Hi everybody!
And we've had such an amazing time exploring the state instrument of Kentucky, the mountain dulcimer. And Gloria, what have you learned?
I've learned I can make a pick out of a plastic lid. Or for the melody, I can use my fingers, a noter, and the noter can also be used as a pencil.
Yes, and as Ron pointed out, the dulcimer is one of the easiest instruments to play. It's laid out quite a bit like the piano in that if you just walk up the instrument, you're actually playing a scale. And Gloria, if you strum it, you already know your first chord.
It's that easy.
And we're going to leave you with the first song that I learned to play on the dulcimer. It's an old fiddle song called Angeline the Baker. And it's going to be a dulcimer and piano duet with Gloria. And Gloria, you're going to play a little Beethoven in the middle, right?
Correct.
All right, so listen for that. I want to thank all my guests for sharing their craft, their music, and their stories.
And thank you all for watching, and I hope this inspires you to play the dulcimer, piano, or any other instrument. So should I just hold it down